My name is Kennedy Kanjejo, Jakanokochogo, Nyando Sub-County, Nyando Constituency, Timo Anthropology, Development Studies. So I work as a researcher and equally also present in the CSO space in Kisumu. And I know I also interact with a number of us here, both online and offline, and we do a number of work in governance space and also in the accountability space. So before me is a discussion that I think Dr. Ari has started, that I would wish to also pursue further, but I'll give it a different dimension on now reflecting on the economic empowerment angle, and now the subject of youth inclusion. And the fundamental question we should be asking ourselves first is whether are youth excluded, or are they really missing in the table, or is it that they are in the menu? So we are consuming young people in our meals every other time that we partake of the national cake or whichever cake we are taking. So those are the fundamental things that we also need to interrogate in this particular discussion. So the context that was provided to me was that the region is facing high unemployment. That is our Lake region, and I will be biased to reflect on 4 counties. That is Kisumu, Siaya, Migori, and Homa Bay, for good reasons. So you will pardon me for that. There's also the skilling and education gap, especially on the issue of quality. And I think there's a lot to really speak about that, quality education. What are we getting in our university, TVETs, the one being run by counties? Are we really getting quality education that can really move these young people into the spaces that we really want them to be, those economic units? Then the other question that was put here was the issue about 3 things. Issue about agriculture, tourism, and fisheries. All of these are systems to which we are using to really produce food. But the reality is, most of the food we are consuming is produced by aging population, people who've really crossed the youth bracket. So the reality is that most of the older farmers that are really producing the food we are eating today are people who are less likely to really adopt the issue about technology, which we are feeling could really spur agricultural productivity in one way or another. But those are the producers that we are having today. So how are we going to really walk these young people into this particular space so that they can also be producers of food we consume? That's a critical question we should be asking. Then there's also the question of land pressure. If you have to do agriculture today, you are not all at the liberty of getting 10 acres, 20, 50 acres to do. So are we also thinking about now producing agriculturally using landless means, or other forms of agriculture that will require less land but higher productivity? Are we able to really infuse technology into agriculture so that we realize productivity in agriculture where we use less land in small urban spaces where we occupy, but also be able to really provide food for our household and also have something for the market? Then the question about credit. Farming that we will use today that we can really produce to get in the economic space, those smaller spheres to the market, is funding that would require some essence of capital. Is that provided? Are we having kitties within our counties, some funds that could be given at either low interest or as grants to really realize potential of these who are engaging in agriculture? Those are trying cage fish farming, the aquaculture within the lake, those who are doing the ponds, those who are doing urban agriculture within spaces. Are there some credit facilities available off-bank, either through SACCOs or other endowment funds that we've really created that can really help us do this? Then the other reality of our life today is now the pool of urban life. That is now taking young people from the villages to town for supposedly some cooler life that maybe you're not sure about. Those are some of the realities that are there with the young people today. What are the opportunities? So for me, the opportunities that the Lake region, just like the Kenyan space and the African continent, is youth. So this is a population that is dominant by young people. So that is a plus for us, and I think we've seen as much the power of younger people, in particular discourses and agitation for some changes in Kenya today. And so the youth bloc is a population cohort that we can never ignore anymore. They are there, they're present in numbers in this country, so it's a bigger bloc. So that is an opportunity that can be tapped, because then if we really move them into a space to do something, then we realize that we can really realize real outcomes from those particular forces, energies, movements, motions by young people. That is there. The other thing is the existing networks. I think the question today was about the other thing about a space to really network. This network also exists around the youth space. So how do we really tap to this network, the social capital network that we can really build around this particular spaces, so that then young people can really tap there? I believe they really exist. Within the Nyanza, the lake region, if you are to really do mapping and census of non-state actors, organizations, you'll realize that we have a number of them doing a number of programs. All these programs, in a bigger way, they are tapping into youth potential and energies. How do we really bring them on board so that then we also take advantage of them? So there are a number of things that are being done. The other thing is also looking at potential of tourism within the space. Beyond the hotels, what other attractions do we really have? What other products can we really look at? Things like eco-friendly tourism, resort sites, adventure tourism, things like that. How can really young people really tap into those? And I believe each of these counties has those particular potential that we can really look into. The other thing that is of interest is the lakefront. And I think Kisumu has been trying something called Lakefront Development Corporation. So the question is, how do we really restructure the lake so that then within that lake ecosystem, we can have something like a beach-type economy around the lake? The other thing within that particular lake, I think there's been promises about restocking the lake, because for those who are around the lake know that the bigger challenge about the lake has been the declining stocks of samaki hapo ndani. So there's been promises around that. How are we really following up on this particular promise to realize then we're able to do this? And for those who lived for many years, I think there are olden days where there are days where Namnilo Romatin, for that the stocks grow up, then we get back. Things like that. But now we also need to do it on a larger scale in a more strategic way to really realize that particular potential of that particular lake. So as I conclude, the typical question to really ask in all this is the question of political economy, the gives and takes. Because then, when you want to talk about the issue about youth inclusion or including anybody, there's the political interplay in all these things that we have to do. So if we close our eyes to the issue about politics, when you want to include young people, then we are going to really miss the question. So how does political issues really play in this particular economic discussion that we're having as young people today? So if you do not reflect on that, and I think it relates to what Dr. was speaking to, then we will not get this particular thing right. So for me, my understanding of politics is who gets what, when, and where. So the question you're asking, where are these youth? Where are they? What are they getting? And how are they getting those particular things? Are we making those things available for them? Or are we making it so difficult for them to really participate? The other question you need to look at here, from the 145 wards where we are drawn, the leaders representing us in those particular, do they look like you? Would you invite them into your enterprises to lead? The people taking charge of decisions in your counties, do they look like you? In every ward in this particular, in all these 4 counties, look at the pool of professionals within your ward. Are they coming together to talk about a bad road, last mile connectivity, which hasn't reached your village? Are they speaking about water connectivity for all these ages? People in Nyando, hawajaiona kitu ina tap water from something called Kiwasko. So with these need professionals seated here from Kano, what is the conversation to realize that maybe before my mother dies, they see something called tap water, the way somebody will drink that from Kisumu. Huko chini, there's a lake, which equally is being tapped from Kisumu Central to provide water. How difficult can that be done in Nyando to realize that extra revenue for the county, but equally ensure that now a resource like clean water is available for populations in both Nyando, Nyakach, and those satellite areas? So those are the issues that I feel we should really look at. Then just a minute finally, there's one word that is really flying around the country at the moment called ineptocracy. I won't define it. It's a system of government where the least capable to lead are elected by the least capable to produce. I leave it at that. So thank you so much. I think the others will discuss.